Good morning. This is Dr. Mia Lueth, and it is Monday, March 16th, 2026. It is approximately 6:45 a.m. Eastern Time, New York, USA. And I decided to jump on real quick for a couple reasons. I'm just now it's all kind of hitting me that I'm going to sign away my privilege to drive today, which is difficult. But, it's the best decision, so I'm not too thrilled about it, but it's going to happen, because in the state of Maryland, you can't have a driver's license and have my driver's license essentially expired on Monday last week because it was my birthday. I turned 54. So I'm going to get a state ID card so that I have an ID card, but it won't be a driver's license. Of course, in an emergency, but other than that, yeah, my medical condition has gotten to the point where it's just better and safer that I just not drive anymore. I have symptoms that could arise very quickly, and, I just never know. But it's a bit of a downer for me, to be honest. But mainly because I've been going through I've been reading some ice hockey articles and, National Hockey League, and in case anybody hasn't seen any other videos or I haven't said, you haven't heard me say, I'm a player safety advocate for when it comes to National Hockey League. And there are I've seen some comments, I've seen sort of a bunch of different perspectives when it comes to Radko Gudas with a knee-on-knee hit of Austin Matthews. So Radko plays with the the Anaheim Ducks, and Austin Matthews is captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I remember Radko's rookie year. He came up through Tampa Bay Lightning, and I know that he has talked to the player safety department for disciplinary action before, so he is a previous offender more than once, which should be considered in the action taken against him for disciplinary reasons, for player safety reasons. Above all that, it's not just discipline, it's for player safety, because other players also get a message that, right, this is not acceptable. There are some who have criticized the Maple Leafs for not responding, like the team, because there's a few different schools of thought when it comes to the National Hockey League. And I kind of understand that, and I myself, if I were a player on NHL ice, obviously I'd be a goalie, so I'd be on ice a lot, and if I saw one of my teammates take a purposeful and intentional, I did rewatch that several times from a couple different angles, and I'll make my statement about that. But if I saw that, I myself would definitely be quite tempted, if no one else was doing it, even as a goalie, might go chasing after Radko Gudas just to let him know, excuse me, what the, unacceptable, man, no, like, stay the fuck away from my captain. There's certain types of people too. So not everyone who plays National Hockey League ice hockey is gonna, respond that way. And I'm not saying one way is right and one way is wrong. I'm saying I think essentially what happened in that particular case was the officials were right on it, and there were Leafs who were definitely immediately concerned about their captain. But Radko was kicked off the ice immediately. And so, maybe there were guys who were a bit more restrained because they knew since he was kicked off the ice, I believe he got a 5-minute major and he was kicked out of the game. Some players kind of knew he's going to end up talking to the Department of Player Safety, and he's not going to be on the ice, and, letting those mechanisms handle it instead of, possibly getting more injured or possibly getting more penalties. It was a pretty quick response when it came to the on-ice officials, and Radko was, booted off pretty quickly. And I think that there were some Leaf players who, at that point in time, just were more interested in how their captain was doing. So, there may have been a perceived lack of response from the Maple Leafs, and I think that those factors that I mentioned kind of played into it. I will say that, there's some guys have longer memories, and I didn't check the schedule, but if the Ducks don't play the Maple Leafs again in regular season or postseason, pretty much there'll be someone on the Leafs who next season will remember. And so there is that chance still that next season, first game that the Leafs and the Ducks play against each other, somebody might take care of it then. Like I said, there's a few schools of thought these days when it comes to these kind of things, but there's some guys who it would probably get stuck in their craw. It's probably stuck in their craw, whatever that means. Stuck in their craw. I guess that means my craw. My craw. I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't know what a craw is entirely. I think I looked it up once, but it's like it'll just it won't sit well. And I'm sure there's a few guys on the Leafs who next season will be there and might go after Gudas the first game they play against each other, because while it happens less often in the National Hockey League, it still happens. So I can't say that a response still might not happen, but I think those factors I mentioned kind of played into why that also officials kind of know sometimes what the reaction might be. So they were very quickly on the situation, on the scene, and they did very quickly. Okay, they didn't waste a lot of time, make Radko leave the ice. But I think that I agree with, I know that Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers has spoken up about it, and and the Leafs coach and other, more impartial types, and now I'm going to do it. Seeing that Gudas has been in front or been talked to before, has had to have, those meetings with the disciplinary action committee for the Department of Player Safety, he is a repeat offender. Now, I know that there were some who watched that game, and I saw it in some online chat having to do with the Winnipeg Jets, because there's, chat about other teams and other things that happen in the National Hockey League, and there was, one party that said, well, it probably wasn't intentional. He was just, right there on him, and then there was another party that said there's no way that could have been unintentionally done. So it wasn't an unintentional thing. So there's, two different perspectives at the very least that I've seen. And when I watched, again, from a couple different angles, it's Radko Gudas. And he's a serial offender. I mean, he's gotten to that point. And it's Austin Matthews who is the captain and one of the best players for the Leafs. So to say that it was unintentional, I think, would be untrue. The way it all happened, the angles, where the puck was, what was going on ice, and I am definitely leaning toward Radko knew he was going to make knee-on-knee contact with Austin Matthews. If it were someone else, and if certain things had not been happening on ice, and if it was, if the way play happened, then sure, I could see that these things, sometimes knee-on-knee contact does happen unintentionally. This is true. It's not that everyone, knee-on-knee contact can happen unintentionally. And, there's always that. See, here's the thing, is that there's always that risk with knee-on-knee contact. If you do it intentionally, you have to understand that, right, you could also go down. You're sacrificing your knee in the hopes that, you're still standing and the other person goes down. So, attempting it, likely, right. But, Radko Gudas is also that kind of player and guy who, right, willing to, take that chance. It's a risky hit, and it is not allowable in the NHL, but it still gets done. This is also what I'm saying, is it's a risky hit. So, if Gudas gets kicked off the ice, it could have just as easily been him. He may also have an injury. So knee-on-knee contact is something that is used more sparingly these days in the National Hockey League, but to say it doesn't happen intentionally anymore is not the case. Given all factors, I too say point blank, Radko Gudas should have had an in-person conversation with the Department of Player Safety, and considering that there's really no way I can say it was an unintentional situation, and it just was, he was just playing hard. I can't say that. It does not appear that way. Now, what he might have said to the Department of Player Safety, excuse me, Now that cough, I have a couple different coughs. That cough is pneumonia cough. I'm still trying to get stuff up. So, and given the fact that he has had to be disciplined before, I am also saying that the Department of Player Safety definitely did miss the mark, and it may set a precedent. We, may have a couple of the players say, well, I can go without playing 5 games if I can take out this other team's captain with knee-on-knee contact. Because some will quite literally think that. Not all players think that way. Okay? But there's some still in the NHL who, at a certain point, might be willing to sacrifice themselves in that way, their body, their knee, and attempt knee-on-knee contact in order to, yes, get a captain or one of the best players on another team out. And that is what has happened with Austin Matthews. He's MCL issue. He did get his MRI, and he is out for the rest of the season. So considering who it happened to, and considering Gudas, I disagree with a 5-game suspension. There just seemed to be more evidence that it was done intentionally, and it isn't really okay for anybody knee-on-knee contact these days in the National Hockey League. But it also, if someone has not ever seen the the Department of Player Safety and the disciplinary committee or whatever it's called these days, and they think that they'll get 5 or less games, some might actually attempt knee-on-knee contact to cause injury to another team's captain or one of their best players. These things still happen in the National Hockey League. Regardless, because he's been disciplined before for other things, and there's no way I could possibly say it was unintentionally done. 5 games is unacceptable. It just is unacceptable. I don't care what he had to say to player safety. It's those factors are unacceptable. And if, the reason why the Leafs didn't immediately go attack, Gudas, or, start a fight with another player, was because they knew since he was getting kicked off the ice, they knew right away he was getting kicked out, and they were allowing the air quote disciplinary setup and system in the National Hockey League that happens via the Department of Player Safety to have its process, instead of risking anybody else or in turn also getting more penalties. I mean, it could be that they just were allowing that process to work. But I guarantee you, with 5 days, somebody on the Maple Leafs is going to remember. And the next time that the Maple Leafs and the Ducks play each other, considering 5-game, nope, I'm pretty sure Yes, there will be some who will be quite willing to take it into their own hands, so to speak, and that puts Radko Gudas in an unsafe place. Okay? So that is another reason why the Department of Player Safety needs to consider also 5-game suspension. No, that's unacceptable. And that also puts retaliation, right, big X mark on Radko Gudas. And it doesn't matter even if the game is next season. There are going to be some guys who remember. There's going to be some guys who are going to send, a pugilistic message to Radko Gudas. So, there's this back and forth and these kind of things. The Department of Player Safety with the disciplinary situation has to be a little more consistent if you don't want retaliations to be happening. And it doesn't send the world's best message out to the rest of the NHL. Well, you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do, and then you can intentionally knee on knee a captain who happens to be one of the best players on a team, and 5 games. And if you've never offended before, you might get less. 1 game, 3 games. It sets a bad precedent, and, I disagree in a lot of different ways, but I've mentioned why. And I understand that some might say it was not intentional, and I'm going to say, given all factors, yes, it was intentional. That was an intentional hit, low body. He aimed for knee-on-knee contact. So, again, I am a player safety advocate, and the player safety department needs to understand. They should understand what I'm saying. Yes, a lot of them played in the NHL, and they kind of know what it's like, and they kind of know how the thinking is. And while the thinking has changed a little bit, there's still guys. There's still guys who are definitely gonna remember Radko Gudas doing that to Austin Matthews. And the next time these two teams play, it would not surprise me if someone immediately goes after Radko Gudas. Particularly considering this was a light sentence you gave him. And many different perspectives and people disagree with it. So, Connor McDavid, the way he put it, was, had to rethink the process. Need to go over, how these things are, how the discipline is doled out, and the entire process needs to be looked at. So there's some, activity that should be happening in the summertime. Department of Player Safety. Point blank. For all those reasons and more. And I gotta be honest with you. Okay? Even me, I don't play, but I understand. That would be something that would bother me the next time I go on ice, just theoretically me, as a person with, the Leafs, and I saw Radko Gudas, I mean, I might pull some dirty shit. He skates by, oops, oh, I can't help, he can't skate. Trip him with my right? There'd be some things that might push him. Who knows? There's some things I might do. I personally wouldn't, I mean, not that I wouldn't get into a fight, even if I'm a female. Quite literally, sometimes there's some unacceptable shit. And if, whistles aren't being blown and it seems like, the officials, or what some call affectionately the zebras, aren't really, getting involved, I too would. And I'm a female. At some point, right, make the decision to just go fight. But that's not something a goalie should handle. But I would definitely, I'd probably pull some dirty stuff on Radko Gudas if I could. Point blank. Send a message, like, clean up your fucking act, man. I mean, we should be avoiding this shit. Alright? But yes, I think the next time the Ducks and the Leafs play against each other, it would not surprise me at all if one of the Leafs just stops playing and goes after Radko Gudas. And that is because directly linked to 5 games is not enough for a multiple offender who did do it intentionally. So anyway, the Jets won again. What's the term? Sean Reynolds, used the term, they just went back and turtled. And to be honest with you, okay, I mean, whatever it takes to work on a win and get 2 points in regulation. Sean Reynolds works for Sportsnet. But he and Ken Wiebe have the Kenny and Rennie show, which is online. And I listened to some of the post-game from 680 CJOB. I think Jim Toth and others were discussing some certain things. I'm not as critical as some others are. A win is a win. And there were some, but they were in the, they didn't play a full 60 minutes, and it's just like, many people have different definitions and understandings of what a full 60-minute game is. And that was definitely, more of a full 60-minute effort. And I gotta be honest with you, there are times when the other team's gonna push back. So in the second period, pushback started happening, and maybe they did turtle and try to keep anybody from having any kind of a shot on Comrie, even though throughout the game there were a few peppered in there. But it's a win, and it's 2 points of regulation, which is ideal. So people can, assess all you want post game and say all you want, but quite frankly, I'll take it. It's 2 points in regulation, so yay. However they do it. One of the things that I have to say is, given the entirety of the NHL and how some of these games end up, Maybe not as much the Winnipeg Jets this year, but like 5 goals. Like, 1 goal is not insurance anymore in the National Hockey League. No, 2 goals is not exactly insurance. And yes, depending on who you play, and and that's what I'm saying. 5 goals. 5 goals is insurance in the NHL. That has changed. A lot of teams at a certain point, you're up 1, getting that other goal. Another goal was looked at as insurance. And no, not anymore. At least 3, but, superior insurance is 5 goals up over whoever you're playing. If a team has to turtle for a period, oh well. I mean, just the way it happens sometimes. Because you could look at certain times during that game where, the St. Louis Blues did a little bit of turtling. And kind of having to, play a whole lot more defense in their O-zone. I mean, there was a good bit of that. So, all I can say is that I do find that no matter what team is being talked about in the National Hockey League, but definitely for sure the Winnipeg Jets, I need to remind ice hockey people and fans of the NHL that your team, there is never really a time in the NHL where one team has total control of everything on ice and, the other team has no choice the entire 60 minutes but to play that team's game. It can happen occasionally. It can happen sometimes in the playoffs. Like, it was the St. Louis Blues, I think, that one year, and it was 13, 14 years ago or so. I think it was the year before the half-year lockout, where the Blues, and there was a series where it was, a four-game sweep. And I mean, the other team just got run over. And that was probably the closest I'd seen to a situation where one team was just going to play the game the way they play their game and do what they do and had control and mojo the entire time. Yes, due to parity and, the way that these guys have competed, there's always a percentage of time during any NHL game where one team is able to kind of get more control over what's happening, get some mojo, and play to their system. But they aren't doing it the whole 60 minutes. You have to consider also that other teams know what they're doing. Other teams know how to shut down some players sometimes. And with natural goal scorers, I mean, it's why Alexander Ovechkin would sometimes have a scoring drought. Sometimes he'd make assists. But, people will say he's streaky. Well, that's part of the reason. Other teams, and especially defensemen, learn, okay, cover this zone here all the time. Push them to the... And sometimes they're successful for a short period of time. But like good ice hockey players, I mean, Sidney Crosby's had to do it a few times in his career where he was successful in a certain part of ice, and he was, able to either be on ice when a goal was scored or be the one who scored the goal. But other teams started to know to be in his way and force him in a different. So instead of being really successful shooting from the right, he just slowly started being more successful shooting from the left or down the middle or close up. I mean, they find ways, but other teams factor. You know, I mean, the way people say it, in the third period when this and this and this happened, you gotta have that one. You gotta have that one. Otherwise, apparently they were not able to do that. Looking at something and actually being the one who does it, two different stories. Even with guys who have played the position, there's still that little difference of, well, I was on ice doing it, and I had a cramp in my leg, and I had to pee, and, we had a short changeover because this is a back-to-back game. So I do appreciate when press sort of go over, ask the guys on ice, well, either the coach or the ones who did it, if they're doing press and they have availability, what was going on at that point in time, because it could be, well, you may think I had to have that one, but it's not like I didn't try. Okay? There are some really hypercritical hockey types who, some are impressed, some are fans who like to talk about it, and I'm not going to take away your right to do that, but season over season, I would expect that some of you would have learned. Where these things could have been, that could be the case. You got a tired player who had to pee and had a cramp. Well, no, obviously didn't have that one. Okay, so, I've seen some individuals, for instance, on Winnipeg Sports Talk, who are on every season, and they say the same things every season. They expect the same things every season. And it's kind of like, haven't you learned yet that every NHL team has to make a roster spot for anybody from the farm team, which in this case, or the minor league team, however you want to look at it, the semi-pro, American Hockey League, AHL. And sometimes it just isn't possible due to cap space or certain other things that, sometimes a team probably wants to do certain things, but they have constraints. So there's a lot of speculation, but at a certain point, what I'm saying is, it doesn't seem like some of you are learning, is all I'm saying. So, if you're constantly wanting the same thing to happen, and you're getting all frustrated, oh my God, for the love of God, for fuck's sake, blah, 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 bring up somebody from the Moose, bring up somebody. It isn't that simple. Get that through your heads. Okay? Because if you're truly getting frustrated, it's probably affecting you physiologically too. But the expectation is, if you're that well schooled in the NHL and your particular franchise, you would already know that by now. Anyway, I gotta go. My alarm went off. Player safety. I agree. I agree with those who find Radko Gudas' 5-game suspension to be a light and not appropriate disciplinary action, considering the whole. Okay? I'm Dr. Mia Lueth. I know that some people were used to me doing certain things last year, and I don't have my studio room anymore. And my health is, kind of tanked a bit. And, I don't monetize this channel for appropriate reasons that I have mentioned, but will likely also put in the description here soon. But yes, I am a scientist, and I have been doing anomalous research on my own independently for years, and now, slowly but surely, when I have time and available resources, trying to kind of introduce myself to that community slowly but surely. I have to be particularly careful about certain things, because whether anybody believes it or not, spiritual gifts do exist. And oftentimes in the field of psychology, there are some who may not know that you really should understand spiritual gifts a little better, because some of them have not gone crazy, and nor are they, severely mentally ill. That's a fact. And anybody who kind of flows and follows with Carl Jung, well, Carl Jung was a mystic. And he believed in the collective conscious, and, he showed some, evidence that people could perceive things that weren't seen with the physical eye. So anyway, I gotta go. But go Jets go, and be safe, everyone.